The last time anyone saw Garrett Lane smile was the day he set his neighbor's barn on fire, with her still inside. That was 3 years ago. Since then, he hadn't said much, not to his lawyer, not to the chaplain, not even to the executioner. But when the guards came to walk him to death row, he asked for one thing, to see his old K9 ghost. What happened during that final visit was quiet, strange, and bone-deep disturbing. And afterward, none of those men ever worked a midnight shift again. The prison sat on the edge of nowhere, a rectangle of concrete buried in the hills of Teller County, Colorado. Locals called it Black Ridge. Half of the way it jutted from the Black Shale Cliffs. Half because once you were in, you didn't come out until something inside you died. If not your body, then your mind, or your soul. Garrett Lane had been on C Block for 1,143 days. The guards had bets running on whether he'd speak a full sentence before the state flipped the switch. Until this morning, the odds favored silence. Warden Cale brought the news himself. 2 guards trailing him down the cell block in that quiet that comes before a storm. They stopped at cell 214. Garrett sat on his cot, shoeless, eyes sunk into a shadowed face. His fingers worked a thread loose from the mattress edge like he was trying to unspool time. "You asked for a final visit," Warden Cale said. Garrett blinked slow. "Yeah." Cale cleared his throat. "Name it." "Ghost." Garrett said, not looking up. "My dog." The 2 guards traded glances. Not laughter. No one laughed around Garrett. Just confusion. "You want Ghost? Your old K9 partner?" Cale asked. Garrett's voice was sandpaper dragged across memory. "He saved more lives than I did. And I never got to say goodbye." There was a long pause. It hung thick in the air, almost tangible. "You were dishonorably discharged. You know that," the warden said, his voice harder now. "The department doesn't look kindly on ex-firemen turned murderers." "Then call the dog, not the department." Cale studied him, eyes narrowing. "You get 15 minutes. 1 shot. If he's still alive." Garrett looked up then. Just once. And nodded. 3 days later, just before dawn, the van pulled up to the back gate. Ghost didn't bark when the doors opened. He didn't pant or wag his tail. He didn't act like most dogs. Because Ghost had never been like most dogs. The German shepherd was gray around the muzzle now, slow in the hips, scars carved in the fur on his right flank. One from a house fire, one from a man with a knife in a hostage standoff. He didn't belong to the department anymore. He belonged to a man named Vince O'Malley, an ex-cop turned mechanic, who owed Garrett a life debt no one talked about. Vince stepped out, handed over the leash without a word, and drove away. Officer Callum Raines took the lead, Ghost padding beside him to the layers of gates and buzzers and board stairs. Raines didn't like this place. He didn't like Garrett Lane. But he remembered what that dog had done once, pulling 2 kids from a house that Garrett would later be accused of burning down. The contradiction sat heavy on his mind. They stopped outside the visitation chamber, converted now from its usual bulletproof partition. For this, Warden Cale had allowed direct contact. Something almost unheard of. "Clock starts when the door shuts," Cale muttered. Ghost sniffed once, looked up at Raines, then walked inside. Garrett was already waiting, sitting on the steel bench with his hands folded in his lap. No cuffs, no restraints, no guards inside the room. The moment Ghost saw him, something in the dog changed. He stopped mid-step, ears pricked forward, eyes locked on Garrett like the years hadn't passed. Then he walked forward slowly, sat in front of him, and tilted his head just so, like he remembered. Garrett didn't speak at first. He just stared at the dog, and the dog stared back. Then Garrett reached out with shaking fingers and touched the scar on Ghost's shoulder, the one he'd helped bandage himself years ago. "I'm sorry," Garrett whispered, "for all of it." Outside the one-way glass, Raines shifted uncomfortably. So did Cale. "What the hell is this?" muttered the warden. "He's not even crying." But Raines leaned closer. Inside the room, Garrett leaned forward. He pressed his forehead gently to the top of Ghost's snout and whispered again, so soft that even the hidden mic on the wall couldn't catch it. Ghost didn't move, but his tail gave one slow thump. Then Garrett said something that did get picked up. "They think I killed her," he whispered. "But you know, don't you?" Ghost stared at him. "You were there. You saw. You remember." The dog lifted a paw, placed it on Garrett's knee, and held it there. The clock hit 15 minutes. Rains entered first. "Time's up." Garrett pulled away slowly. "He can stay till I'm gone." "No," Cale said firmly from the door. "No exceptions." Garrett looked down at Ghost one last time. "Then listen to me," he said, voice sharper now. "Stay with them. Show them. You understand." Ghost barked once. Short, clipped. Then he stood. Rains reached for the leash. But Ghost walked out without it. Head high. Eyes alert. Like he was leading again. That unsettled Rains more than anything else. The execution was scheduled for 2 nights later. But something shifted after the visit. Ghost refused to leave the prison grounds. Even when Vince came to collect him, the dog braced his legs and growled, not at Vince, but at the gate, at the road leading away, like leaving meant betrayal. So Warden Cale, after a long conversation with the governor's office, allowed Ghost to stay in the K-9 quarters for 48 hours. "Dog's harmless," he said. "Besides, it keeps the guards on edge. That's a good thing." But Ghost didn't rest. He didn't eat. He walked the halls like he was searching for something. That night, around 3:17 a.m., he stopped at cell 214. Empty now, of course. Garrett had been moved to pre-execution protocol. But Ghost sat outside that door for a full 5 minutes, unmoving. Then he barked once. The sound echoed down the block, waking 2 inmates and freezing a rookie guard his share. When officers investigated, they found nothing except scratch marks on the inside wall of Garrett's cell. Claw-like, fresh. The shift supervisor wrote it off as vandalism, probably a bored inmate with a spoon. But the marks weren't there during Garrett's final inspection. Of that, Rains was sure. The next morning, Warden Cale had a headache before sunrise. He wasn't superstitious. He didn't believe in ghosts or omens, but he did believe in intuition. And Ghost was staring at him from the base of the stairs like the dog knew something about his sins. Cale had been there the night the neighbor's barn burned, before the press arrived, before Internal Affairs made their report vanish, before Garrett took the fall. He still remembered the smell, kerosene and blood, and he remembered something else. Garrett never smelled like accelerant, but someone else did. By noon, Ghost had found the lighter, tucked behind a rusted vent in the storage room. Melted plastic, old corrosion, but the engraving was still clear. W.C., Cale's initials. Officer Rains found the dog standing over it. He didn't bark this time. He just waited and stared like he'd done once years ago, when he cornered a suspect in a collapsed stairwell and wouldn't move until backup arrived. Only this time, the suspect wore a badge. The lighter was handed over to Officer Callum Rains without a word. He held in his palm, the way you'd hold a found tooth, familiar, but wrong. Worn metal, cracked flint, and the initials W.C. etched so clean they hadn't faded even after the burn. The weight of it didn't feel right. Not just physical, moral, like something carried too long in too many pockets. Cale didn't even pretend to be surprised when Rains walked it into his office. Found in the maintenance wing, Rains said, careful with his voice, hidden behind the vent. Dog wouldn't leave until I pulled it out. Cale looked up from a paperwork he wasn't reading. "You think that proves something?" he asked. "I think Ghost doesn't lie," Rains said quietly. The warden leaned back in his chair, lips tightening. "You've been here 2 years. You're still green. Let me give you a piece of advice. This place will eat your damn guts if you let it." Rains didn't move. "I knew Garrett Lane," Cale said. "Before the trial. Before the fire. He had a hero complex. Did good work. Got reckless. And when that barn burned down with Julia Mathers inside, the case was open-end shut." "Open-end shut doesn't mean clean," Rains said. He set the lighter on the desk and stood. "Dog's been pacing the South Block every night. You might want to ask yourself why." Then he left. Garrett Lane was dead. Execution by lethal injection. 11:53 p.m. on a Thursday night. His final words were recorded as, We both know it was never me." The guards didn't speak much during the procedure. One threw up afterward in the staff locker room. And Ghost howled. Not the long, mournful sound of grief. This was a bark that rose sharp and sudden from the kennel, aimed directly at the wall. He stood with fur bristled, eyes fixed on the concrete, like something behind it moved. By morning, every officer knew. The dog was watching the walls. 3 days later, the rumors spread faster than mold. First, the lights flickering on C Block. Then the security feed glitching out every night at 3:17 a.m., the exact time Ghost had barked outside Garrett's cell. One guard reported hearing scratching inside the vents. Another claimed he saw writing on his cell door that vanished when touched. Ghost still wouldn't leave. Rains fed him by hand in the mornings. They sat on the yard steps after sunrise, watching fog peel off the hills like old skin. "You were with him that night," Rain said once. "The fire," Ghost blinked, slow. "Still, you saw what happened." The dog's ears twitched. Then, without warning, he stood and began walking toward the chapel. The chapel at Black Ridge Prison was a small, neglected building on the edge of the yard. No sermons, no faith left in this place. Just dust and silence. Ghost pushed through the cracked wooden door with his shoulder. Rains followed. The air smelled old, like varnish and rot. At the front was a crooked cross, half rotted. Behind it, a wooden wall, one that hadn't been opened in years. Ghost stared at it, then sat. Rains walked over, ran his hand along the edges. "What are you trying to show me?" A faint hiss of air, and then a seam, a barely visible latch, worn smooth with time. Rains pried it open. Behind it was a crawl space. Inside, ash-stained rags, an old fire helmet, and a box of matchbooks labeled Wickman Feed and Supply, the same store Julia Mathers worked at before she died. Rain stepped back. The helmet had a sticker on the back, property of WC. That night, Rains broke protocol and visited Vince O'Malley, the ex-cop who brought Ghost to the prison. They met in a truck parked on the edge of town, headlights off. "You were there the night of the fire." Rain said, "You owed Garrett a favor. Tell me what happened." Vince lit a cigarette with trembling fingers. "We were on a double shift. Volunteer fire call, out near the back ridge. Barn fire. Looked accidental at first, till Garrett ran in and didn't come back for 7 minutes. He saved the boy, though," Rain said. "Yeah," Vince said, "but he came out carrying something else, too." "What?" Vince looked away. Julia Mathers' purse. Burnt and empty. Rains blinked. He said he didn't find her inside. Because she wasn't inside. Not when he went in. Vince exhaled smoke slowly. That purse had $12,000 in it. Bank record said Julia pulled it out that morning. Whole town knew she was skipping state with it. She never made it to her car. A pause. She wasn't burned. She was beaten. Then someone staged a fire. Rain stared at him. "So, why didn't you come forward?" "Because Garrett told me who did it," Vince whispered. He said the lighter wasn't his. That she met someone at the barn. Someone she trusted. They fought. She died. And then Garrett tried to cover it all up. Protecting the department. Protecting someone. Who? But Vince didn't answer. He looked back toward the prison, eyes wet. I think he wanted Ghost to finish what he couldn't. Back at Black Ridge, Rains returned at dawn. He didn't go to the gate. He went straight to the warden's office. But Cale wasn't there. Neither was his service pistol. His keys were gone, too. What was left behind was a single sticky note on the desk. Check the south wall. I'm tired of pretending. The south wall of the prison was reinforced concrete, built in 1989 after a riot. But just below the drain pipes, behind a patch of earth Ghost kept circling, the dirt was loose, and the smell hit first. Ghost began to dig, not frantic, but steady, like he knew exactly where and how deep. 6 minutes later, Rain saw a bone, then cloth, then the curve of a skull. The coroner confirmed it later that night. Julia Mathers, still wearing her work uniform. No signs of burning. Blunt force trauma to the back of the head, and a wedding ring in her pocket. engraved with the initials WC. Warden Cale never came back. His body was found 2 counties south, slumped in a parked SUV. Gunshot to the temple. No note, but the lighter lay on the passenger seat. Garrett Lane's name was cleared within the month, but Raines didn't feel relief. He felt cold. He felt shame. Because in all the time he worked with Cale, he'd never questioned the gaps, never asked why the case wrapped up so fast, never followed the strange details. He looked at Ghost sleeping in the corner of his small home. The dog had nowhere to go now, so Raines kept him. You knew, Raines whispered. Ghost opened one eye. I should have seen it. Ghost didn't move. He just stared, calm and silent. Then he turned his head back and closed his eyes again. But sometimes, at night, Raines would wait to find Ghost sitting at the window, watching the trees, like something still waited out there, something unsettled, and not done yet. It started with the boy at the fence. Mid-October, fog bleeding in from the hills, the kind that felt like it crawled inside your coat. Raines was walking Ghost along the perimeter trail behind his cabin, isolated, tucked at the edge of Red Hill Forest, miles from town. After the prison scandal broke, the department offered him promotion. He declined, took early retirement instead. The weight of everything sat in his ribs now. Ghost stopped short, ears forward. There at the wire fence. A boy, maybe 8, thin jacket, no shoes, mud to his knees, and clutched tight in his arms, a stuffed lamb with one ear chewed off. Ghost growled low. Raines stepped forward, hands open. Hey, you lost, kid? The boy didn't speak, didn't flinch, just stared past Raines to the dog. Ghost stopped growling. Then he whined, like he knew the child. Raines reached the fence slowly. You okay? Where's your folks? The boy opened his mouth, but no sound came, just a wheeze. Then, softly, almost without breath, he whispered to the dog. Raines froze. What did you say? But the boy was gone. No footprints. No sound of running. Ghost barked once at the trees, then sat, head tilted, waiting. Raines didn't sleep that night. The report. 3 days later, news hit the wires. Vince O'Malley was found dead in his shop. See O2 leak. Ruled accidental. But Raines knew better. There was a note taped to the breaker box. There are more. And a burnt matchbook beside it. Same as the ones found in the chapel crawl space. Wickman Feed and Supply. But that store had burned down years ago. Right after Julia Mathers died, Raines started pulling records. Property deeds, staff logs, financials. And he found something he hadn't seen before. A secondary owner on the Wickman account. Deputy Samuel Weller. Now Sheriff Weller. The same man who first interviewed Garrett Lane the night of the fire. The same man who processed the evidence. Who lost the surveillance footage from the barn's backlot. Raines visited him that night. It was raining again. Same kind of bruised sky. Same quiet before the fall. Weller answered the door in jeans and an undershirt. Belly sagging over the belt line. Eyes hard, like he'd been waiting for this. Well, damn, he muttered. I was wondering how long it'd take. Raines didn't smile. Garrett's gone. Cale, too. Vince. That just leaves you. Weller stepped back. You coming in, or you gonna shoot me in the porch light? Inside, it smelled like whiskey and cheap cologne. Ghost paced the threshold, then walked in. No hesitation. Weller watched him with unease. You brought him. Garrett trusted him more than anyone. Raines said, You remember that? Garrett trusted the wrong people. Like you? Weller poured a drink. Didn't offer one. She knew about the money, he said. Julia. She was going to blow the whistle on the feed scam. The department laundered state fire funds through Wickman's. Paid off volunteers, pocketed the overages. Cale thought it was genius. And you kept the books clean? Weller nodded. Until she found the ledgers. She confronted Cale. She came to me, wanted me to go to IA with her. Raines leaned forward. And instead, you met her at the barn. Weller stared at the glass in his hand. She cried, he said, voice tight. Begged me, said we could run. Start over. I told her she was crazy. She tried to take the ledgers. Slapped me. I didn't mean to hit her that hard. A pause. But I did. Silence. Garrett came to help her. Rain said, not kill her. He was late. Found her already gone. I was hiding behind the hay bales. He saw the purse, the ledgers. I think he knew, but he didn't say a word. Just lit the fire. Ghost stood now, staring. Still, he could have run, Weller said. But he didn't. He knew the system. Knew we'd bury him if we had to. So he took the fall. Rain stepped back. You're going to confess. Weller laughed. I'm going to finish my drink. Ghost didn't bark. He moved, straight across the room. Not an attack. Just close enough that Weller couldn't ignore the eyes. Dog seen too much, Weller muttered. Like he's got a memory of it. Maybe he does, Rain said. Maybe Garrett made sure of it. The tapes. Rains found them 2 days later, buried in an envelope taped beneath the dog's crate. Something Vince must have placed before his death. 3 mini-cassettes. Old dictation style. One was dated 3 days before Garrett's execution. He played it in a borrowed handheld player. Ghost sat beside him. I don't expect forgiveness. Not for what I didn't stop. But Ghost, he remembers, he always did. I trained him to find bodies. To sit when he smells blood. To growl at lies. That dog knows the truth. All of it. Rains turned off the recorder. The sun was setting outside. Clouds orange and heavy. Somewhere in the woods, a hawk screamed. Ghost laid his head on Rains's boot. No sound. Just quiet. A year later, the prison closed permanently. Too many lawsuits. Too many bodies in the walls, real and metaphorical. They shuttered Blackridge, sold the land. Ghost lived out his days with Rains in a quiet cabin near Ridgeline Creek. He limped more, slept longer, barked less. But once in a while, just before dark, he'd walk to the edge of the trees and stare, like he saw something waiting. Rains grew older, too. He'd sit on the porch most evenings, sipping coffee gone cold, reading Garrett's letters, never mailed, just draft he found in a footlocker Vince left behind. Letters to Julia, to Kale, to Ghost. The last one ended simply, tell the dog I tried, that I never stopped loving her, that I carried the truth even when it burned. The final walk. When Ghost died, it was during a thunderstorm. No cries, no whimpers. He simply stood in the doorway, looked back at Rains one last time, then walked into the woods. They found him the next morning under the old elm, curled up against a tree root. He was buried there, beside the lighter and the last tape. Rains carved a marker into the bark. Ghost. He saw what we looked away from. He heard the lies between our words. He loved anyway. Some nights. A dog howls in the woods near the old prison site. Locals say it's just coyotes. But a few, those who remember the fire, the trial, the man who whispered his dog before he died, aren't so sure. Because some truths never burn away. They just wait until someone listens.